Hello guys, welcome to another video. Today we are going to build a JavaScript project in which we will make a to-do list app. So let me show you what this app can do. We can simply add a task here and add it to our to-do list. We can add multiple tasks here and we can also make a task mark as completed, and if we will click on it again, it will again mark it as uncompleted. And if we will press this cross button, it will actually delete the task from our to-do list. So in this way we can add many tasks into our to-do list and mark them as completed, and we can also delete a item from our list by hitting this cross button. We have a extra feature here. Suppose if the user will refresh the page, the data will be not lost and it will still saved in our to-do list. Even if the user will restart his computer and reopen his browser, so data will be permanently stored. Now let's begin the video. So here I have a folder. In this folder I have 3 files for my HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And here is another folder in which I have 3 images. We will use these images in our project. So I will provide you a link in description. By clicking on that link, you can freely download my source code and these PNG images. Now let's open these files in Visual Studio Code. You can use any code editor, but I will use Visual Studio Code. So here are our files opened in Visual Studio Code. First of all, we will open our HTML file and write our basic boilerplate code by writing this exclamation mark and pressing tab. So here is our basic structure of our document. So this line is about title of our page. So I will change the title and rename it by to-do list. And here we will link our CSS style sheet with this HTML document. So here in hrefs I will write style.css. Now our HTML file and CSS file both are connected. Now let's open our style.css file. So first of all, I will add here some default properties which will be applied on all of our elements in our index.html file. I will add padding and set it to 0. I will add font family and set it to Poppins. If Poppins is not available, then we will set it to sans serif. We will also set box sizing and set it equal to border box. So here in starting we have written a default code which is basically applicable on all of our HTML elements. Now let's come back to our HTML file. So now we will write our code within this body tag. So first of all, we will add a div with class container and press tab, and now we will add CSS for this class container. Come here to our CSS file and write here dot container, which will select our container class. For this container we will add width of 100% and minimum height of 100 vh. After it we will add background, and in background we will use a linear gradient color. So here in brackets we will first add a angle of 135 degrees, then put a comma here, and after this we will add 2 color codes. After this we will add some padding. Let's add padding of 10 pixels. This padding will be applied from all sides. After this, let's come back to our HTML file, and now we will open this web page with our Visual Studio Code's extension, which is live server. If you have not already installed it, you can install it from here by going to extensions. So we will open this web page in our browser by using live server extension. So here our file is opened. You can see a gradient color in background, and you can also see the title of our page here. Now let's come back to HTML file and within this container add another div element with class name to do app and press tab. So in this to do app class we will add a title in h2 tag, and here in this h2 element we will write to do list, and we will also add here a image element also. For that I will use image and press tab. So in image source I will write the path of my image file which is in images folder, and the name of file is icon.png. so this image is basically available in our folder. The name of folder is images, and here I have icon.png. So I have written same path here, images, and in images I have written icon.png. Now let's save and come back to our web page. You can see this text and this png image of our icon is showing here. Now we have to edit some CSS. Let's copy this to do app and we will go to our CSS file. We will edit this class. So first of all we will adjust its width, and width is going to be 100%, and next we will add max width, and max width is going to be something like 540 pixels. Its background is going to be white. For white I will use color code #6f. Now let's add some margin. We will give it a margin of 100 px from top, and from left and right we will leave it to auto, and from bottom we will give it margin of 20 pixels. And next we will give it some padding also. From top it is going to be 40 pixels, from left and right it is going to be 30 pixels, and from bottom it is going to be 70 pixels. Now after this we will add a little bit border radius. We use border radius to turn around our corners so it won't look any sharp. So I will add border radius of 10 pixels. Now let's save it, and once go back to our website, you can see the white background color is applied and it is horizontally aligned in center because we have given it padding of auto from left and right. Now let's edit this text. For that let's come back here and copy this class again here, and our text was written in to do app class, and in that class the text was in h2 element. So let's target this and start editing this. For its color we will use this color code #002765. Next we will set its display and set the display to flex because we want to align the text and icon. Next use align items and set it to center. Now we will give it a margin from bottom, and the value of margin from bottom is going to be something about 20 pixels. So now let's edit our icon, and the icon was also in this to do app class and it was in our h2 element and further in image. So let's target this. First of all we will give it width of 30 pixels. Next we will add some margin from left side, so there will be some space between this icon and our text. At this point let's save it and come back to our website. So now you can see at this point our icon and text is looking good. Now we want to add a text box here with a button. So basically we will use this text box to enter our task. So for that let's come back to our HTML. So after this HTML element, make a new div and give it class a row, and in this row class there will be a input field and its type is going to be text, and we will also give it a ID, and ID is going to be input box. And here we will also add a placeholder, and in placeholder text we will write enter your task. So after this we will also add a button element, and in this button we will add a text which will basically say add. Now let's save it once and go back to our web page. You can see here is a input field with a placeholder text in it, and here is our add button. So next we want to design it. To design this we will use this row class and come back to our CSS, and here we will use this row class to edit this. First of all we want to set its display to flex because we want to align the text box and button horizontally. Then we will align the items to center, and we will set its justify content to space between. We will use here space between. After this we will give it a background, and we will use this color code for our background, EDEEF0. Its border radius is going to be 30 pixel, so its corner will be rounded, and padding from left side is going to be 20 pixels, and margin from bottom is going to be 25 pixels. So now let's save it and come back here. You can see the background color to this row is applied. Now we want to add the CSS to style this search box. So for that, here we will target our input element, and first of all we will do flex and set its value to 1 so it can take full width. Now if you see here, there is a border line here. We want to remove this border line, so we will use border and set it to none. Next we want to remove its outline. For that we will use outline and set it to none, and its background is going to be transparent. After this we want to add some padding, and we will add padding like 10 pixels. Now we will edit our button, and for that we will use here button element, and let's edit it. First of all we will set its border to none, and also we will set its outline to none. After this we will add some padding. Let's add padding of 16 pixels from top and bottom, and from left and right add 50 pixels. Here we will change the background and set it to this color code FF5945. So next we will add color. This is going to be color for our buttons text, and we will set it to 6F. It will set it to white. Next we will set its font size and set it to 16 pixel and set its cursor to pointer. Now let's add some border radius. So we will add border radius and set its value something like 40 pixels and save it. Now let's come back to our website. You can see both our input field and our button is looking good. Now after designing and creating this input field and button, we have to create a list of tasks. For that, let's come back to our HTML file. So here in HTML, where our row is ending, we will add here a UL, which means unordered list, and we will give a ID to this list, and ID is going to be list container, and within this UL unordered list we will create a LI, which means ordered list. So for now let's add some tasks here like task 1 and duplicate it 2 to 3 times. So now we are adding this manually, so we can edit this in and style this in CSS. So you can see the tasks are showing here. So to edit this list, let's come back to our CSS, and here we will edit our UL and LI both lists together. And first of all we will style a list style and set it to none. After this we will add font size and set it to 17 pixels. Now let's add some padding here. So we will add padding of 12 pixels and 8 pixels and 12 pixels and 50 pixel. And Here we will set its user select and set it to none for now. We will also change the cursor and set it to pointer. So now let's save it and come back to our web page. You can see there are some changes applied here, including our font size, our padding from left, right and top. Now we want to add some circles here in front of these tasks. So user can click on those circles if we want to set a task to be completed. For that we will come back to our CSS again and we will use UL and LI, and after this we will use double colon. We use it for our pseudo elements. So here we will use our pseudo element which is before. So first of all, here we will add content and set it equal to a empty string. You can use here single quotes or double quotes, and we will set its position to absolute. So position and set it to absolute. Then we will adjust its height and set it to 28 pixels. Then we will edit its width and set it to 28 pixels also. Now we will add the border radius and set it to 50%. So whenever we use border radius and sets its value to 50%, this basically changes our element and change its border to circle. So this before element which we are creating here will show as a circle. So actually what we can here do is give it a background image. So we will set its background image by giving it a URL, and in this URL we can give a images path, and we are going to give it a path of unchecked.png. So this image is actually here in this images folder, and here you can see the name of the image is unchecked.png. So we are using this icon from this image. So after adding the image, we will add background size and set it to cover, and we will also set its background position to center. So from top we will give it value to 12 pixels, and from left we will give it something like 7 or 8 pixels. So here we are using position absolute. So for our list we will use position relative. So now let's save it and come back to our web page. You can see here we have a circle in front of every task. So we can use this circle to check mark if the task is completed or not. But at this point when I am clicking here, it is not selecting any task. So now we will add some code. So whenever we will click here, it should be selected. So let's come back and come back to our index.html, and here in our list container, in the first list we will add a class and set its class name to something like checked. So we will use this checked class name to add CSS individually on these tasks. So let's come back to our style.css, and here we will add ul li, and in this we want to use the checked class. So now we will edit this. So we don't need a extra space here, so remove this space. So first of all we will apply a color here, and for that we will use this color code #555. It is basically a shade of gray color. Next we will add some text decoration and set it to line through. So basically whenever we will check a task, there will be a line through our text on that tasks. So it will basically cut that text which will represent that our task is completed. Now let's copy this and paste it here again and add here a pseudo element before. So here what we want to do is this: we want to update this image. So if the task is completed, the image should be changed. To update the image, I will use this same line, and here we will change the name of our image which is checked.png. So here in our folder you can see we have a image checked.png. So without saving it, let's go back to our page. You can see now the icons are same, but when we go back and save the new changes and design we have implemented for checked, let's come back after saving it. Now you can see the icon is changed. So there is line going through our task which is marked as completed, and the icon here is also updated. So basically it is showing a tick or check mark here which is represented that this task is completed. But now here is a problem. These tasks are showing by default. The task should only be displayed here if the user will enter his task in this input box and press this add button. So now we want to hide this. For that, let's come back and come back to our HTML. So for now what we will do, we will comment all of these lists. So we can comment them by pressing Ctrl and K and then press Ctrl U. So now we have commented it out. Now let's save and go back. Now these tasks are gone and hidden. Now let's come back, and now we can see we have here a JavaScript file by the name of script.js. Now we will link this JavaScript file with our HTML. So just before this closing body tag, here we will add our script file. For that I will use script element, and here I will give it a source attribute and set it to what is the name of our script file, that is script.js. So I will set source is equal to script.js. Now let's save it, and now we can open this JavaScript file here. So here we want to create some variables in our JavaScript for our input box and our add button. So for our input box we have a ID here. Let's copy this ID and let's go back to our script.js file. So here we will make a variable by using const, and here we will write name of our variable and give it a name like input box and set it equal to document dot get element by id, and here in brackets enter these double quotes and here paste that id for our input box, and here we will use our semicolon. So const is basically used when we don't want to change the value of our variable. So this is our variable name for our input box in JavaScript. So this line of code is used to import a element using id. So that's why we have used document get element by id. By using this we can import any element if we have given its a id in our HTML. So after this, in our brackets in double quotes we will write the id which we have given to that element in our HTML. So all of this line will import that element into our JavaScript and store this in this variable which we have created. Now we want to add a more variable for our this list container. So let me copy this from here, copy and go back to our script file, and just you can duplicate this first line here, and here we will change its class name and paste our new class name here, and here we will also update the variable name which is going to be list container. So here we cannot use dash symbol in our JavaScript's variable name, so I will remove this dash and use capital C here. So basically we have given variable the name list container. Now so these two things are imported to our JavaScript. Now I want to do just a little thing here. I want to add the click listener on our button. So I will come here in our button and add a attribute here. So we will add on click and set it equal to add task. So here basically we are giving it a attribute. The attribute is going to be on click. So basically it will define when we will click on this element what will happen. So what we want to do on clicking it is add a new task, and here we will use our brackets So basically by giving it here brackets and writing add task in our onClick attribute, we have created a new function which is add task. Now let's copy it and paste it in our JavaScript. To use it here, we will write here function and we will write here the name of our function which I already copied, add task, and in these curly brackets we will add the code which we want to be executed when the user will click on that button. So in this function we will add a if condition and we will do this something like this. We will use here our input box variable which is containing basically our text from our input box. So we are basically using input box value and check if it is equal to empty string. So first we want to specify the condition for this situation. If the user is pressing that button and at that time there is no data or there is no text in that text box, in this case what we will do, we want to show a alert on screen. So for that we will use alert, and what alert we want to show there, we will just display text. You must have to add a task before adding it into task list. So if that input box is empty and the user is pressing the add button, so this alert will be displayed there. Let me add here semicolon. Don't forget to put these semicolons at the end of your code. So this line will be displayed in that case. Now we want to specify the other case by using else. In this case we will be specifying if the user has entered a task or a text in that text box. In this case really what we want to do is let's create a variable in here JavaScript and give it name li. Basically li represent list, so we have taken let li and set it equal to document.createElement, and here in our brackets and further in double quotes we will write the element we want to create. So in else case, in this line we have specified if the user have entered some text in that input box and then he press the add button, in that case this line will create a element in our list. And in next line what we want to do is this, select this li mean our list and target it in our inner HTML. So this inner HTML will target our list element which was here in our HTML file. So let's go back here and we will update that list with the value which is coming from input box. So we will use here input box dot value. So what this line will do, this will take whatever the value or text is there in our input box and update that text mean our task in our list. So now as this task is added in our list, now we want to show it and display it. So where we will display it, we will display it basically in our list container. So for that we will use here a list container dot append child. This append child will basically use to adopt value of something. So in this case it will append the value whatever the value or text is there in our list. So it will take the value from our list and display it in our list container. So now let's save it and come back to our project, and let me add here a task like this video, and when we will press add you can see the task is added here. If I add here another task like subscribe and press again the add button, so it will add this value to our list container. So at this point our list is working, but at this point we can see this text is also displaying here in our input box. So we want to remove it. When the user will click on this add button, the text here will be added here into our list, but it should not be displayed here. So we want to hide it from here. So to set this, let's come back, and after this else we will add input box dot value because we want to change its value. In this case we want to set the value to empty. So whenever this add task function will run, first of all this will enter whatever the value is there in our input box and show it in our list container, and after that it will empty our input box. So now let's save it and come back to our app, and here I will write, if let's say again subscribe, and press add. So now subscribe task is added here and it is also removed here from our input box. Let's test it again by writing here like add again. So like task is added here and it is removed from our input box. So if you are still watching, please hit that like button and also subscribe our channel. So now what we want to do is we want to add something like a cross button here. The purpose of adding a cross button here is whenever we will press that cross button, the task which is already added here will be removed from here. So basically we will use that to delete a task. So let's come back to our JavaScript. So we will basically add that cross button within this list, and we are going to add that cross element by using our span tag. For that we will write here let name it span and set it equal to document dot create element. So we want to create a element with tag name span. So now we will add some content to this span element. For that what we will do, we will use span dot inner HTML is equal to, so here in double quotes we will write this little code. It is going to be \E00D7. So basically this is a code to show the cross sign on our screen. You don't need to remember all of these little things. You can always Google them whenever you have needed. So basically it will add one cross icon to our span tag. Now what we want to do is we want to display this cross sign, we want to display this span. For that we will use our li and we will append a child in it. So basically append child, I already told you, is used to update that value into this element. So whatever we will write here, its value will be updated into our list. So in this case we will remove this equal sign because we want to add the value of span here. So in brackets we will simply write here span and here are our semicolon. So now let's save it and come back to our website and write here hello and press add. It should show here the cross sign. Why it is not showing the cross sign? Let's come back once. So actually we have made it here a little mistake. We need to write here U not E, and we also forget to put here our semicolon, which is our statement terminator. So now let's save it and come back to our website and write here hello and press on add. Now you can see there is a little cross symbol here next to our hello. So next we want to do is add some CSS, we want to style this cross sign. So for that let's come back to our CSS. This cross sign is stored in our span tag, and here we will write ul li and span because our span is basically a child element of our list. So we will style it. First of all we want to set its position and set it to absolute. Next right and give it value 0, and its top is going to be something like 5 pixel. And after that we will add some width and height. Width is going to be 40 pixel and height is also going to be 40 pixel. After this we will add font size for this cross symbol. Font size is going to be 23 pixels. So we will also give it a color. For that I will use a color code. You can use like something like 5 3 times. This will basically give it a shade of gray color. Line height and set it to 40 pixel, and lastly we will add here text align, and text align will be in center. Now we want to do a little thing about this icon. We will add a hover effect on it, mean if the user will take their cursor on this cross sign without clicking it. So let's paste this ULLI span here again, and here we will edit its hover property, colon hover, and let's edit it. So in this case only we want to change the background. If the user will hover over it, we will use a different color for its background for this case. So the background is going to be EDEEF0. Now if we save it and come back to our website, you can see we have here a cross symbol, and whenever I come and hover over this cross symbol, you can see its background color is changing, but this background color is in square form, so I want it to encircle. So for that I will just come here and set its border radius and give it value of 50%. So I already told you, whenever we give 50% value to border radius, it will make it circle. So let's save it and come back, and now if I hover over it, you can see its background is circle. So now it's looking more beautiful and professional. So now if I click on this cross button, it is not doing anything, and if I click on this check button, it is also not doing anything. So we want to define the functionality for both of them. If we press on this button, it should delete the task from here, and if I press here, it should mark the task as completed. So for that, let's come back to our JavaScript, and where this add task function is added, we will add here some JavaScript more lines. So here we will use our list container, and we will add a event on it. So we will use add event listener. So which kind of event we want to add? We want to add a click event, and here we will use comma and write function, and again in brackets we will use e. So here we will use our curly brackets, and in this curly bracket we will define its functionality. To do that, we will use our if conditions, and in these if brackets we will use e, and we will be targeting e. For that we will use e target dot tag name. So we need to remove this e from here, so we will use e dot target dot tag name. Make sure to capitalize the n of this tag name, and we will set this tag name equal to our list. So in this case what we want to do, we will define again in these curly brackets. In this case we want to do e dot target dot class list dot toggle, and here in brackets we will write checked, and here we will write our semicolon, and here after this I will write else if, and then I will explain it. And in our else if condition we will again write again this line. We will copy it from here, so copy and paste in this condition. So we will only change and write here span. So in this condition we will use this curly brackets to define the functionality if this else if condition become true. So in this case we will use again e target dot parent element dot remove. So this cross button will remove the parent element, and here we will use our semicolon again, and here we will use a comma and write a false here, and at the end of our last bracket we will use semicolon again. In this case we are specifying different conditions. If the user will click on our list, so our list is in our list container, so it will mark that as checked, and in case it is already checked and the user will click it again, it will uncheck it because we have used here toggle. So if the task is already clicked and set it as checked. So if the user will again click on it, it will set as unchecked. So for this reason we are using toggle. And in our else if case, we are saying if the user is clicking on span tag, in that case what we want to do is we want to target the parent element and we want to remove the parent element, because this span is basically our cross symbol. So whenever we will click on our span tag, this will delete its parent element. So its parent element is this. So when we click on this, it will remove its parent element. So now let's come back. We have not yet saved it. So now let's save it and come back. And if I add a task here, like, and I will press add button, so now the task is added here in our list. So if I will click on this like button, so it will mark it as checked and it will mark it as completed. If I will click on this again, so it will mark it as incomplete or it will uncheck it. So it is also striking a line on it if it is completed and changing its symbol. And when we click on it again, it will remove that line and also change our symbol. So if I will click on this cross button, it will delete our task from our list. So now let me just press this button without adding a task here. So we will press add, and now you can see it is showing this alert message we just added recently. So it is saying you must have to add a task before add it into a list. So this is also working. If we don't enter a text, it will give us a alert. For example, if I enter subscribe text again here, so it is added to our list. Let me add another task. So it is also added in our list. We can mark here to check it as complete, and we can use this symbol to delete the parent element, mean delete the task. Now we want to add a last feature in this. For example, if I add a task here, like add task, and I will add another task here also. So at this point we have added some tasks in our to-do list, but at this point if we refresh our tab or if we will close our browser, all of this list will be gone. So we want to permanently store it and use it as our to-do list. So we don't want to actually lost our to-do list. For that we will add a functionality. If the user will refresh the page or if even the user will close the browser and restart the computer, so even in that case the to-do list will remain same and it will not be changed. So to add this last feature, let's come back to our JavaScript. And here we will create a new function. For that we will write function, and here we will give this function a name like save data, and here in these curly brackets we will define this function. So here what we will write here local storage dot set item, and in this set item what we want to do, so in this we want to add the values. So where we want to add the values, we want to of course add the values to our data, and which values we want to add here we will separate it using a comma. So basically we want to store the entire content which is in our list container. So we will use here list container dot inner html. So it will store all the list container data which is in our inner html, and here we will use our semicolon. So whatever the data will be here in our list container, it will store in our local storage of our browser by the name data. We can access it later by using this data name. So next what we want to do is we want to call this save data function whenever we will create any changes in our list. So for that let's come here up. So we will paste and call this function here after input box value. So whatever the value of our input box will be updated, the data will be saved. So we want to actually also call this function and save the data in the case if the user has checked some item as completed or marked it as complete, or the user has deleted the data from the list. so it can store the updated content whenever the user will make changes in the list. So at this point we have added the functionality to save the data in our browser whenever the user will make any changes. So next thing what we want to do, we will display again this data if the user reopen the tab or refresh the tab or reopen the browser. It should show the same data which is already saved. So it is also easy. Let's create another function here. Give it some name like show task. In this function what we will do, we will set our list container in inner HTML equal to, we want to equal it to the data already stored. So the data is already stored in our local storage, and in local storage we will use a get item. So the get item is basically our data. So what this function will do, whenever the user will refresh the tab or reopen the browser and visit our website or visit our app, this function will go to our local storage and get data from there and again insert that data in our list container. So we are already displaying our list container here, so the data will be displayed on our to-do list app. So we have created this function. Last thing we want to do is just call this function, copy this function and paste here, and also put here semicolon. So after adding this, save this and let's come back to our website and let me add a task here. Please like this video and add this to our task. And I will also create another task like please subscribe this channel, and I will add it here. So now I will mark this please like this video as completed. So in this case, if I have completed this task, please like the video. So I will refresh the page. You can see if I refresh the page, our data is still there. And if I update the list, like I will delete this line from here, and now here is only one task in our list. So if I refresh again, you can see the data is here. Even if I add a task here like goodbye and add it and mark it as complete, and even if I close the browser, we will open it again using live server. So go to our HTML, right click, and we will open again it our live server. So you can see all of our data is here and it is not lost. So as you can see, our to-do list is working perfectly, and we have created this to-do list in JavaScript, HTML and CSS. I also hope that this video was helpful for you. Please like this video and also subscribe our channel. I will see you in next one.